Hi, for today we are continuing with our narratives in writing. Hopefully, last week you guys got your orientation done and you have chosen a problem for your story. Today we are focusing on the bridge to our complications. That's sort of the lead up into our problem. We can write our problem as well, but I really want us to focus on not just starting our problem straight away, but building up to it, building that rising action. So what I'm looking for today is you can continue drafting with a focus on your complication. You can build up the action with narration and dialogue. It's important to have a good balance of those. And you can use adjectives and adverbs. I've got a little diagram here that sort of shows how the plot works in a story. So we've all done our orientation, hopefully, where we introduce the settings and the characters. And then it builds up to this rising action where there starts to be a building tension through problems or conflicts. That builds up to a final point where the tension reaches its peak and a solution starts to happen. Then there's a falling action where the characters apply the solutions to the problems or conflicts and then it tapers off to the resolution where all the problems are solved. It's really important that we're focusing on one problem and one problem only. Now, this problem can get more challenging, but new problems shouldn't be introduced. Now, we're doing this to make it easy on ourselves and so that we're not making it too complicated where we're going to have multiple problems and multiple pages of writing. We're just focusing on getting a nice, concise narrative for this first one. So if you haven't built up your, if you haven't done your orientation yet, I'll go through that in a moment, but hopefully you have, and you should have good detail about the characters and the setting and a bit of a hint at the beginning of the problem. Now you might need to go back through and look at your teacher feedback from last week, or if you haven't done your orientation, you will need to do that today. But it's time to write our complication and it should be built up. When we write the rising action, we are describing characters' feelings and actions. A new character may be introduced or the setting may change. And it's important to have a good balance of narration where it's the author talking or describing what's happening and the dialogue, which is characters speaking. Now, if you haven't chosen a problem, here are some options which I went through last week. So overcoming evil, a quest or a journey, a contest, or a transformation. So in my story, I would say that it's a bit of a quest where they're going on a journey, but it's also overcoming evil. So your task today is to continue drafting, focusing on building action, trying to include a good balance, adjectives and adverbs, characters, thoughts, and feelings, and a little helpful hint about talking marks. But we're going to have a mini lesson about how to punctuate dialogue on Thursday. We'd also like you to take a photo of your writing and upload it to OneNote. I'm going to go through my narrative with you. So this is mine from last week. I wrote the start of it here last week. And now I have started adding more. So let's go through that. Now I have put my talking marks in red, and that is intentional so that you can see a little bit about how to punctuate dialogue. At the start of any dialogue or talking, we need a capital letter, and often we use a comma if we are adding words such as she replied or said the character afterwards. But sometimes we can have a full stop if we've done the talking part at the start. So hopefully by me reading this out loud, you can see that I'm starting to build the problem. So my orientation ended that Red, she was making some muffins for her grandfather. She lived in an area where there's the cruelest villains around. She has to walk past their houses to get to her grandfather. And we know that Red was encouraged to see the bright side in everyone. So here I've got, can you please help me take the muffins out of the oven? Red called to her mother. Of course, sweetie, she replied. They carefully packed the warm muffins into little Red's wicker basket, ready to take to her grandfather's house. Just as Red was exiting her house, Mum called from the study. Remember, you are brave, beautiful, and always see the good in others. Red's mum always said this as she left the house because she knew of the evil that lived nearby. She wanted to assure her daughter that she would always be safe. This may have made little Red too confident when roaming the streets of Rue de Ville, because on this day, as she proudly skipped along, humming a tune, she didn't notice who was approaching her. So here I have continued on from my orientation. I've got balance of narration and dialogue, but then here is a little hint of the problem. So I haven't said something bad happened. I'm going to put a little asterisk there to see that that's when I can see the rising tension that's starting to happen. It goes on. La la la, went Little Red cheerfully skipping, then whomp, she collided with an unfamiliar face. Little Red rarely bumped into the villains in the street, so she gave her usual friendly greeting. Good afternoon, I'm Red. What's your name? The woman stood proud with her sleek black hair slicked into a bun, her eyes green and lips red, spoke softly. Why don't you recognize me? I'm the witch, Bunny. I love your red cape. It's so beautiful. Red's face shone. She knew this witch was kind. Why, thank you. I'm just on my way to my grandfather's house to bring him the muffins. Bring him these muffins, I should say. Red exclaimed, looking at her basket. As Red's eyes glanced back up at Bonnie, she noticed the beautiful sunflowers growing in the front yard of where they stood. Oh, my dear, would you like to pick some for your grandfather? Bonnie suggested. Yes, please. Red skipped off, leaving her basket in excitement. While she was occupied, Bonnie mumbled a spell under her breath over the basket filled with the muffins. Red came back, grinning ear to ear. They said their pleasantries, and Little Red continued on to her destination. What a lovely lady, she thought to herself as she drew near to her grandfather's house. So once again here, you can see when she does the spell, there's a slight hint of the problem. But so far, we don't know that this witch is evil. I haven't given too much away. I'm building the tension. And obviously then she's going to go to her grandfather's house. He's going to eat the muffin and things are going to go downhill. And that's when the problem will really start. So I have done two paragraphs, adding extra tension and building up to the climax of the problem. And that's what you're focusing on today. Excuse my alarm going off. That's my alarm for my stretch break. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of how you would describe what's happening in your story, building up to the problem. I haven't just said she was walking along, there was a witch, and she did a magic spell. That's not good writing. You can see in my writing as well that I've got lots of adjectives and I've used adverbs as well. And I'll focus more on that as we unpack our narratives later on this week. So remember to take a photo of your writing and upload it to OneNote. That is your task today, just focusing on the rising tension and getting to your problem. You can definitely continue on with your problem, but we're not solving it yet.